Have you ever wondered if geniuses are born or made? What if I told you it's both? Meet Albert Einstein, the rebel genius. He was a slow child by some account, silent, curious, and often lost in thought. But within that quiet boy bloomed a mind that would redefine the universe. And now let's travel back to 1879 Germany, where our story begins. March 14th, 1879, a young couple in Germany welcomed their firstborn son, a baby they named Albert. From early on, it was clear that Albert was not like other children. While most kids his age were learning their ABCs, Albert was lost in the stars. He was fascinated with the idea of infinity and would stare at the night sky for hours, wondering about the mysteries beyond our world. As Albert grew older, his mind raced ahead of his speech. By the time he was 2, he hadn't yet uttered his first word. Concerned, his parents sent him to a series of daycare centers and kindergartens, hoping that social interaction would help him develop. But it soon became evident that this was not enough. Albert remained uncharacteristically silent, much to the worry of his parents and teachers. His mother was particularly troubled by his silence, believing that it stemmed from a lack of affection. She worried that she had failed as a mother and yearned for her son to break his silence and connect with her. However, Albert's unusual behavior didn't end at his inability to speak. He exhibited an extraordinary level of curiosity, often questioning things that baffled those around him. The why and why nots of everyday life were endless for him. For instance, when Albert was 3 years old, he asked his mother, "Why does the sky need to be blue?" A simple question that led to a lifelong passion for understanding the universe. At the age of 5, Albert began attending a preparatory school in Munich, Germany. It was here that his academic struggles began. The rigid structure and rote memorization required by the school system left him feeling stifled and bored. He found it difficult to conform to the expectations of his teachers, who couldn't understand why such a bright child seemed so unmotivated. Albert struggled with the traditional methods of teaching and felt that they were stifling his natural curiosity and love for learning. He began to dislike school and became increasingly disobedient. His parents were deeply concerned and tried everything they could to help him, but nothing seemed to work. As a result, Albert was eventually expelled from the school. Determined to find a better educational environment for Albert, his parents enrolled him in a private school. Here too, Albert struggled. Despite being a brilliant student, his classmates disliked him because of his strange behavior. Albert didn't seem to care about making friends and would often spend his time alone, daydreaming and exploring the world around him. And, in addition to his social awkwardness, Albert was often in trouble for being disruptive in class. He would question everything and wouldn't take orders without question. This attitude only made his teachers lose patience, and he quickly developed a reputation as a problem child. By the time he was 15, Albert had already been expelled from several schools, and his future looked bleak. However, his mother had not given up on him. She believed that he had a lot to offer the world and was determined to find a way to help him succeed. When he was 15, his mom decided to enroll him in a Swiss school called the Swiss Federal Polytechnic. It was a school for boys that offered a more rigorous education than what Albert had previously experienced. The school's focus on science and math was perfect for Albert's interests, and his mother hoped that he would finally thrive in this environment. Upon arriving at the school, it became clear that Albert was not like the other students. He was often lost in thought and would spend hours in the library reading books on science and philosophy. His classmates teased him for his strange behavior, but Albert didn't care. He was too busy exploring the subjects that fascinated him the most. The teachers at the school were also baffled by Albert. They couldn't understand why such a bright student would be so disruptive, and so they resorted to punishing him for his actions instead of trying to understand him. Despite all the challenges he faced, Albert excelled academically. He graduated from ETH Zurich with honors and went on to study at the University of Zurich. It was here that he began to develop his theories on relativity. Though he was a brilliant student, his classmates did not accept him. They saw him as a weirdo who didn't belong. However, Albert was too absorbed in his studies to notice their taunts. He was determined to make a name for himself and prove that he was more than just a weirdo. After graduating from the University of Zurich, Albert took a job at the Swiss Patent Office. It was here that he would publish his first paper on special relativity. Although Albert was now working as a patent clerk, he was still considered a nobody in the scientific community. Most physicists dismissed his theories as the ramblings of a madman. However, Albert was not deterred. He continued to work on his theories, and in 1915 he published his paper on general relativity. His paper would revolutionize the world of physics and establish Albert as one of the most brilliant minds of his generation. In 1921, Albert was awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics for his contributions to theoretical physics and his discovery of the law of the photoelectric effect. Finally, Albert was getting the recognition he deserved. But despite his success, he remained humble. Albert was a man who valued kindness and compassion above all else. He was also a man who was passionate about making the world a better place. Albert was a vocal critic of war and militarism, and he used his fame and influence to advocate for peace. After the outbreak of World War II, Albert fled to the United States and became a naturalized citizen in 1940. Once in America, Albert continued to speak out against the war, and he also became involved in the civil rights movement. He marched for civil rights, and he also wrote letters to President Kennedy urging him to end the Vietnam War. Albert was also a man who loved to have fun. He was known for his sense of humor and his ability to make people laugh. He also loved to play the violin, and he was an avid sports fan. Despite his many accomplishments, Albert was a man who remained true to his values. He was a man who was kind, compassionate, and passionate about making the world a better place. Now fast forward to the latter part of Albert's life. He was well into his 70s, and his health was beginning to decline. But his mind was still sharp as ever. In 1955, Albert suffered a brain hemorrhage that left him partially paralyzed. He continued to work despite his condition until he suffered another hemorrhage a few months later. This time he was bedridden and unable to work.
Albert passed away on April 18, 1955. At the age of 76, he was mourned by millions of people around the world. Albert left behind a legacy that will never be forgotten.
His theories have changed the way we understand the universe, and his advocacy for peace and civil rights has inspired generations. He was a man who was brilliant, compassionate, and passionate about making the world a better place. As we look back on Albert's life, we are reminded of the importance of following our dreams, no matter how difficult the path may be. Albert was a man who was constantly underestimated. He was a slow learner who overcame great odds to become one of the most brilliant minds of his generation. He was a man who was considered a weirdo by his peers, but who went on to change the world with his theories of relativity. Albert was a man who was not afraid to be different, and who used his unique perspective to see the world in a new way. If you enjoyed this video, check out these videos next. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more amazing stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.